For those of you who've watched my channel a number of years, you will know one of the things that I constantly go on about, especially when it comes to sort of good policy, is the decarbonization of the steel industry. It would absolutely put huge effort into actually being able to do it. In fact, it would take something between about, again, 20 to 25 years roughly to be able to do. But of course, the effects of then doing it would mean you are securing hundreds of thousands of jobs, both, as we'll be talking about today, in Port Talbot and even in Scunthorpe. These jobs would be secure. Not only that, as we've said before, around these areas there are multiple other businesses and other companies around these, again, big factories who rely on the steel that they create to create their goods, etc., etc. It's all part of one big supply chain. But there are now increasingly worries that because of the energy crisis, because, hey, look, these steel factories have to have their forges on pretty much 24/7. You can't just, turn them off at night and then turn them back on again in the morning. It's not how it works. You have to be constantly supplying these with energy. And of course, what are we in? We're in an energy crisis. So it is, of course, to be no one surprised or even shocked that these companies are in such a bind. Now, could the decarbonisation help? Yes and no. There would still be higher energy costs, but if you, again, combine the decarbonisation with sort of a big sort of green energy push as well, then that would help out the steel industry just as much as it would for any other heavy energy use industry as well. This is why you've got to think really big, but of course we haven't had these types of ideas for years, in, to think even a moment about British industry and how it all sort of, fits together. And of course, who was leading these negotiations? Well, of course, it's Jacob Rees-Mogg. So, oh boy, worried about British steel industry closing in a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up doing a video like that soon, because Rees-Mogg is not the type of guy to really even offer solutions to these people. But there you go. So before we go diving into this, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. So let's see what they have to say about this in The Guardian. Title of Rees-Mogg in talks with UK steelmakers as fears grow for thousands of jobs. The business secretary, Jacob Rees-Mogg, has opened talks with Britain's steelmakers amid concerns that thousands of jobs could be lost from the struggling industry. The government confirmed on Monday that it had entered discussions with Tata Steel, owners of the UK's largest steelworks in Port Talbot, South Wales, and the Jacob Group, which brought the British Steel out of insolvency in 2020. The Chinese company has agreed to maintain its current operation and job numbers as talks get underway. The Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy said, although we haven't had one of those for years, so what are you doing, guys? The company previously warned ministers that the two blast furnaces at its facility in Scunthorpe and Lincolnshire were no longer financially viable without support from the government. And about 4,000 people are currently employed at the site, but thousands more depend on the company for its extensive supply chain, as we said at the beginning. More than over 3,500 are employed at the Port Talbot facility owned by Tata Steel. The exact sum that the Jacob Group is asking for is not known, but insiders have previously indicated to Sky News and others that a potential buyout could run into the hundreds of millions. The steel industry has suffered significantly from the wider economic downturn caused by the COVID pandemic and has been hit with causes soaring energy costs and rising inflation. Tata Steel has previously called in for financial help and wants at least $1.5 billion in subsidies. Discussions between the company and the government took place under Boris Johnson's premiership. However, Johnson promised not to make any significant financial comments before leaving office. The government has previously said more than over 780 million to the steel industry to help with electricity costs since 2013. A BES spokesperson said, "We are currently working across the steel sector on achieving their sustainability and competitive long-term future. We recognize that businesses are facing an impact of the high global energy prices, and particularly steel producers. This is why we're announcing that the energy bill relief scheme to bring down costs." But of course, you've got to remember, some businesses, like the steel industry, use colossal amounts of energy compared to that. And if you want a long-term sustainable steel industry, then you've got to start transitioning them to make carbon neutral steel. That's the only way you can do it. So I'm not expecting these negotiations to go well, to be honest. I mean, it's Jacob Rees-Mogg. I mean, what does he know about the steel industry? Drastically little. And then what industrial strategy is he going to suggest to, actually help, the steel industry? Not a bit. Shockingly, the best thing Jacob Rees-Mogg could do is to actually start the process of moving them towards creating, the carbon neutral steel. But of course, that would take a massive, massive investment, from the company. Well, at least not from the company, but also the government. So, make no mistake, there are options and ways to do it, but Jacob Rees-Mogg is not one to, shall we say, do it. And unfortunately, hundreds of thousands of jobs are at risk, and even more importantly, a very, very crucial and critical industry to, well, the UK economy could just go, which is even more worrying. And of course, we've got a government who really doesn't seem to be interested in nationalizing any important or critical industries. So this is the type of place that, you know, if it closes down or those furnaces just get turned off, that's it. It's gone for good. And that will have huge consequences and impact, as it said in the article. It's part of a massive supply chain. Other companies depend on these plants to be producing steel so that they can then buy that steel to create other goods. So yeah, this doesn't look good. This does not look good at all. This could be, unfortunately, the first rumbling signs of bigger problems to come for the UK steel industry. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, we'll see you all next time.